Greetings. Good day. I am Sadia King, and I'm so excited to be here to finally be stepping out and doing something that really the Creator has called me to do for a while now, and I'm finally being obedient to it. So if you know anything about obedience, it's like this naggingness that you have, like go. But if you don't listen, you will continue to be redirected back to it. So I actually was a communications major when I was in college. I thought I was going to be on the radio back then, but I felt very conflicted because when I did my internship at the radio station, I realized that I was going to have to promote things like Coca-Cola and, all kind of products that I didn't believe in and I did not feel that were great for our community, but it was a part of the industry. And so as a young woman, I was conflicted. And so that really detoured me from going down the path of media because I didn't want to do it the traditional way. And so as media over the years has continued to expand, things like Sirius XM have come up and those kind of things. And even the traditional radio, like the music that's on the radio, it has not really been that appealing to me. And so I'm more of a fan of underground radio, the Spotify, the mixtapes and things like that. But I really wanted to create a space for family. I wanted to create a space where it was really a space for us to grow together, to get organization with our families, to share the things that bring us peace and how to establish more peace in our lives, just based on the families and friends that I had access to. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are having a hard time versus mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And so I really wanted to just share in a wide range with people some of the things that have worked for me, for my family, and for those who I've worked with in different capacities, through consulting, through mentorship, through friends and family. And so I'm thinking, what better way to kind of merge all of these things about myself? I get to share my book, Cuay, which stands for Clean Up After Yourself. I get to work with families, and that's what I'm passionate about. And also as an educator, I get to share tips and tools that can help build up the family of humanity, which is what I'm called to do as a follower. So here I am. Welcome to the Cuay Way. I am Sadia King, and I'm so grateful to just be stepping into obedience right now and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is sharing the word. So the word that I will be talking about a lot, and hopefully from you hearing it a lot, you start using it, is the word Cuay. And it's actually an acronym that turned into a verb. Again, I am an educator, so we're always thinking about academics and comprehension and those kind of things. And so Cuay stands for, again, clean up after yourself. And so that's that acronym. And I felt like saying Cuay and way would be a good way for others to understand how to pronounce the word, because sometimes people get a little caught up when they see it. They're like, how do I say it? So it is Cuay. And so my goal for this word is to really permeate humanity. It's for this word to get to the root of our families, the social, economic component of us, so that we actually leave for our children a world where we don't leave a mess behind ourselves. And that mess can be actually through the wrappers that we leave on the ground. It can be through our carbon footprint. It can be through the odor that we leave, the body odor that we leave behind us. It can be through the heartache that we leave behind for others to deal with. But whatever it is that we're leaving around, we envision a world that is Cuayed, which means that each individual is responsible for what they leave behind. So if you could please take a moment and consider, imagine a place where we're just responsible for ourselves and we're responsible for what we leave behind. You know, that's what the Cuay Way is. And together through this podcast, we are going to talk to people from all walks of life. People, you know, that I've met, crossed paths with, that I've loved, grown from, you know, and I want them to be able to share the things that they're doing with their families in order to create organization, in order to establish peace, get their peace back. I want you to hear those testimonies, you know, of where they came from and where they are. And I want you to be able to see how, you know, establishing order is going to get you closer to your purpose. And the purpose is what we're all here for. So I wanted to really take this time to just give honor and praise to the Most High for just putting me in the right place at the right time. So thank you for joining me. This is episode 1, and here we go. So as an author, of course, I'm also an avid reader. I really enjoy reading texts, mostly informational texts or spiritual texts or self-help books and those kind of things, because I can see how it immediately adds to my life and helps me grow. So that led me to write a few books, and Cuay is actually my 3rd book that is available on Amazon as well. And it goes through about cleaning the home and establishing order in your home through cleanliness. And it also talks about cleaning the body. As an educator, as a teacher in the public school system, I taught locally for 5 years, and I worked with a private school when I was in North Carolina. Also, I homeschooled my children for a number of years before they went off into schools. And so, you know, I kind of live by the philosophy that we're always learning. And so I want to empower parents to create a home learning environment for their children where we don't depend on the school system to educate them. Because I'm a firm believer, and this is what I told my students all the time, if you depend on school alone to educate you, you will be a dumb adult. And I know that's, excuse me, kind of harsh to say, but it's true. You will be a dumb adult if you only depend on schools to educate you, because there's so much more that they don't have the time to get and really cater to. And they might not be able to really know exactly who you are, because a lot of the schools are focused on the curriculum. They're focused on these standardized tests. And those tests don't really speak to the caliber of you as a student, of course not as a human, but they do give a glimpse into your comprehension style and how you comprehend. And so I'm encouraging parents to hold students accountable to do well. And any areas where they have gaps or where you see they need help, we have so many tools that we can, you know, tap into to help with that. And as we move down in the podcast and I start inviting on some guests, I definitely am going to bring on some educators, and we'll get into that a little bit more as they talk about their purpose. Excuse me. So, one of the books that I love to use in my classroom is actually not in the curriculum, but it was very useful for me because what it did is it showed my students, and I taught 5th, 7th, and 9th grade, it showed my students that their vocabulary was really limited. And that's this book, and it's called The English Vocabulary Builder. And it's written by Johnson O'Connor, actually dates all the way back. It was first published in 1973. 1937. 1937. It was first published. So it's old. It has that smell to it, like, ooh, old time libraries. Book readers know what I mean, right? But it has that smell, and I just love to crack it open. So they recommend that you try to go through this book and read about 15 words per week, 10 to 15 words per week to practice and grow your vocabulary. This, I would say, is more for middle and high school students, unless you have advanced elementary students. But, and also this is for adults. And so that's one of the things that I want to touch on as well with this podcast through the Cuay Way. You know, I really want to support families. And what I learned from being an educator is a lot of families have parents who have low comprehension skills. And so if you're a parent like that, it's hard for you to hold your student to a standard that you don't meet for yourself. And then it actually creates resentment in the household between you and your child, because they like, she don't even know how to read herself. You tell me, Mom, what is it? What's the answer? You know? And so we don't want that kind of demeanor. And really, you know, children, we should not be talking to our parents like that anyway. But the point is that it's not too late for parents. I do not believe it's too late for you to increase your comprehension as well. And so as we move along through the podcast, again, I want to be supporting families and being organized. And so if you feel like a gap in your life is comprehension, then let's get organized to fill that gap. You know, whatever it is, we want to be able to build on that. But organization is the foundation. And that's what Cuaying is about. And so as we build organization, we're able to establish more peace in our life, and we're able to focus on our purpose. And so I really believe that that's what God did for me. And that's what I want to be able to share with the family of humanity so that you can grow even further than you are right now. So when we talk about growing, establishing organization, finding peace in our life, and really focusing on our purpose, it's important for us to, you know, look at what really is before us. What are we dealing with? What's on our plate? And so in order to do that, you know, I'm tracking back now to 8 years ago, and I just want to kind of share my story so you can see how the Cuay Way has impacted me and brought me to this place where I'm meeting you today. So 8 years ago, I actually was ending a 9-year marriage, and my children's father and I, you know, separated and decided, you know, not to be together anymore. And that was really hard for each of us in our own way, but extremely hard for the children as well. One thing that was on our agenda at that time, originally as a family of 4, was for us to migrate from living in North Carolina, which was really the only state that I had ever lived in, to moving down to South Florida. And, you know, we came to visit some of our friends, and I think it was like 2013 or 2014 or something like that. We came to visit some friends down here, and we just fell in love with the weather, the environment, the diversity, the food, you know, the access to the beach. And we were like, okay, we want to move there. So at the time, my daughter was in the 5th grade and my son was in the 1st grade when their father and I separated. And, you know, I was like very low, to say the least. I was very low. I felt really lost, to be honest. And one of the big things that was happening in my life at that time was I was finding my way back to God. And so I remember going to a funeral, and I can't remember whose it was, but it was a funeral that I went to, and my children were there, and, you know, they had everybody to stand up and read the Lord's Prayer. And I was so sad and shocked when I realized that my life was so really, to me, backwards at that time. I was very involved in my community. I was very much, into bartering and supporting people, and we did all kind of things as a family. We had a family business at that time. So, we were out there, we were helping people. We were about sustainable living. We were about nonprofits and, branding ourselves and all kind of things. But I did not have a spiritual foundation. And I didn't realize how really that was impacting my life as a woman, as a mother, definitely as a wife. And at that moment, being in that church, just happened to be there and having them have us stand up. And of course, my husband at the time and we can recite the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. And we went through it, and I'm looking at my children, and they're like, da, da, da. They don't even know anything about it because we never taught them. And that just hit me so hard, oh no, something ain't right here, And in 2016, my grandmother passed away, who was my best friend, literally my bestie, passed away. And, I just felt that I wasn't really connected to North Carolina anymore like I was before. I always wanted to be able to get home. And I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. Shouts out to the port city. I grew up in Wilmington, and so I was by the beach all the time. But at this point, we had lived in Charlotte for a number of years, and then we lived in the Raleigh-Durham area for a number of years. And so I did not have access to the beach. And really, it was calling me. And so after the separation of my marriage, I really felt like God was saying, get it together, really get it together, And so my son, when he started reading, he was about 3 or 4 when he started reading. I then, had a Bible book, children's Bible book. So that was one of the first books he started reading, but it was late to me. He's 4 years old. Whereas I feel like I had been brought up in the Word in a different way, even though I stepped away from it. I was brought up in it, and it guided me until I, put it to the side. And so I was at this point in my life where I was so low, and I knew immediately this is what I need to pick up. So just to give you the short story on that, I came back into the Word. I did not have a church family when I was in North Carolina. And so I decided to just go online, right? Everything's online. So we would have praise and worship at the house, listen to music, and just really getting back into it. And after the relationship ended, I still felt that the children and I were drawn to come to South Florida. So literally 8 years ago, 2017, so it was almost a year after my grandmother passed away. 2017, I was in a place where I kept hearing, and those of you who are spiritual, you know this, I kept hearing, just come. Just come, just come. And I was like, how? I literally had just gotten fired. I was a manager at a restaurant that I just got fired out the blue. And I knew that it was God. To be honest, I knew it was God because I had already planned to leave the next week. I got a new car because my car wasn't that good. I didn't have AC in it. I'm I can't move to Florida with no AC. So I got a new car. I was working this job, but I knew I was leaving, but they fired me. And it was such a blessing because since they fired me, now I can get unemployment versus that next week, I actually was going to quit. I was going to quit the job, but I didn't have to. So please forgive me if I'm all over the place, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of history of kind of where I'm from, what I was going through, and what brought me to this place. So I get fired from this job. I'm like, thank God, right? I got unemployment now. And I packed up my Honda Cross tour with my 7-year-old and my 11-year-old. And at the time, my, ex-husband, he was okay with us moving. I guess something in him felt that, we needed this change. Although, I think he later realized, wait, my children are so far away. And so, they're with him throughout the year because of that. But I do think that, he had peace with it somehow. And I thank God for that. So long story, but I ended up moving down here with the children with no job. My dad gave me $1,000. And so I found a rooming house to live in. It was this nice lady. She had a 3-bedroom home. And, she let us stay there. I told her all I needed was 90 days, 3 months. And she was charging $700 a month. So of the $1,000 that my dad gave me, I gave her $700. I had to wait for my unemployment to fall through, which would take a couple of weeks. She was such a blessing. Like, all of these angels came to me. And really, that's a whole nother book in itself. But she taught me how to get situated, how to get my children into school. The school was right across the street from them. The principal was a help to me at that school. He gave me some resources. And everything just opened up for me. I found a job. I was able to, move on from that. And I met this guy who took me to church with him one time, which I hadn't been to like a new church in so long. And they took me to this church down in South Florida, and it's a mega church. And I went there, and it was so amazing. Just, the way that they broke down the Word of God, and it was very youth friendly. They had a great youth program. And so my children and I started going. I started taking them to the Bible study that was on Wednesday night for the youth. And then I started going to the parent ministry, and I met so many amazing people through the Bible. And actually a lot of those, those are my sisters now, my brothers from the Bible study group. So I'll definitely be inviting some of them onto the show so that they can share, their stories as well. And just from those experiences, my life expanded. We got an apartment, I started teaching, and, later I wrote my book, and everything just kind of started to unfold with me. And I realized that the common denominator was I now had a relationship with the Creator. And it was so sweet. It was so just comforting. And I realized in reestablishing that I had put so much pressure on my ex-husband to really be my God because I didn't have one. And that wasn't fair to the relationship. But, in hindsight, you grow and you see yourself. Having God back in my life, getting my children involved in the church. My daughter was in the choir for a while, and we just grew so much through that church family. And now I have a virtual church family that, is out of LA, and it feeds me so much as well. And so, growth was just ever present. But one thing that I still needed help on was organization. And so through all of that, now I had what seemed to be a balance in my life. Like, okay, y'all got your room. We're not sleeping in the same bed anymore, head to foot. We did that for 3 months. And it's cool because now as a family, we have this experience, this story, kind of like this fabric, that bonded us. And it's unbelievable when I look back. I can't even imagine how I did it. That's how I know it was greater than me, how everything happened. So all of these things were going well. I'm growing, I'm maturing spiritually, the children are growing. That's one thing with having children I always think about. It's like watching them grow lets you know as a parent, like, I need to be growing too. Okay, I see y'all bodies are growing, but I always start thinking like, what's going on with me? Am I growing? So in order to check if you're growing, you have to show what are the fruits. And if you don't have a lot of fruits to your life, then something is missing. Something is missing. So that's what we want to get to. So organization was happening. I had this young son that I was raising, and that was totally different because we didn't have a man in the household, even though he has his father and he's very active, but he wasn't in the house with us. So that made a difference. And, because of that, like not having his father in the house with us, it was certain things that I needed to do a little bit differently as a mother. And structure and organization was one of them. I think that their dad, I have to give him kudos on that. He's very disciplined. Like, he's almost robotic with the things that he does for his self-care and those kind of things. Like, he's very structured with it. Whereas for me, I'm an artist, and he's an artist too, but we're different types, I guess. And I just like float and, okay, whatever. But, young boys need structure. They really do. I guess we all do to a degree. And Cuaying came about from my son. So no, that's not him on the cover. Everybody asks that. I'll say, I should start saying, yeah, that's him when he was little, but it's not. But anyway, so I always made up like these little songs or little tunes. And so this word came up from an acronym because I kept saying, clean up after yourself. Clean up after yourself. I said, clean up after yourself. Like, ugh, ugh. So it sounds so much sweeter to say, did you Cuay? Did you Cuay? Right? Did you Cuay before you went outside? Did you Cuay before you left for school? Right? It's a little sweeter. And so I started using that instead of repeating, clean up after yourself. Did you clean up? Kind of thing. And it brought a little bit of solace to the moment. And I started figuring, hey, I need to share this. And also, one thing that I did learn from my grandmother and my mother was how to maintain a household. And from being an educator, I realized from how students carry themselves, how people carry themselves, that a lot of people don't know how to maintain a household. And it's like simple things, like, getting that stain out of a pot or scrubbing the tub to get that ring out just right. Those kind of things, cleaning the refrigerator out on a weekly basis, those kind of things. Some people don't do, never learned, and nobody is teaching them. So this book came about in order to help families remember those things that our grandmothers and our mothers and aunties and maybe babas, fathers and uncles, right, taught us, which was maintain your household. Maintain your household. Keep your house as a priority. And so I did want to share just like some of the chapters with you so you can get an idea. So chapter 1, what is Cuaying? I kind of went through that. We have like 3 steps on how to clean up after yourself and what the 3 steps are. Then we go into deep cleaning, and I go through different parts of deep cleaning from different parts of the home. Cuaying around the world is where we talk about your mental. You got to Cuay mentally, and your home and community. And then the cleaning overdose, I had to talk about that because some people are on it so much about cleanliness that it can drive you crazy. So keep it real. We all know somebody that is a little, past OCD. Everybody's OCD a little bit, I think, about something. But I don't want Cuaying, I don't want you to overdose on it where it becomes an issue in your household, but it should be a commitment and a priority to the whole family. and not an overdose where, it's causing strife. And so we talk about that, and I talk about, what that might look like. And then chapter 6 actually gets into the body. And that's what I was saying before, like, I have a really sensitive smell. Like my sense of smell is up there, lioness status, right? And so funk is very aggravating to me. Even cigarette smoke, honestly, is very aggravating. Like I cannot stand it. And so, when it comes to hygiene, smelling funk, or really, I still feel like if you're a smoker, you should not be smoking in the vicinity of anybody. Like that's private. That's private. That's for you. I can't tell you what to do with your body and your lungs, but I shouldn't have to breathe it in, and definitely not your children. So if you're a parent and you smoke and your child is coming to school smelling like cigarettes, just know you're harming the whole classroom. The whole class environment is being disturbed by your action of not really having the discipline to smoke privately. So keep that in mind. And then keeping a clean heart, quaying the heart. I kind of mentioned that before, but it's important. It's important. If you're a lover, everybody should be a lover, but we should not be in a place where we are hurting others and leaving pain behind for them to deal with. That's real. So we talk about that. But if somebody is leaving that for you, you have to learn how to quay your heart in order to move on. I always think that that's important for you to quay. We have to be responsible for when we love others and how we affect them. And then we have to be responsible for our own heart when we move forward. So quaying the heart is in here, whatever we go through that. We have a Cuay challenge here where we try to give you a month for you to see how often you can keep your environment Cuay. One of the quotes that we say a lot is check the scene and make sure it's serene. Serene means kind of like peaceful and elegant and, elevated. And so if we're checking the scene before we leave it, then we won't leave a mess. We won't have our socks over here, the cup we had, our brush from when we was doing our hair. Like before you go upstairs, just quay the environment and pick the things up that belong to you. All right. Because our goal is to establish order. And when we do that, we leave a more peaceful environment for our loved ones. Alrighty, and then we go into what I call Cuayology. So I do want to highlight just a few scriptures that, speak to quaying as well. And also one of the things that we're really big on in the quaying environment is making sure that you quay your kitchen. The kitchen is very important. These are things that you're taking into your body, which means it's going to affect your health mentally, your energy and all of those things. And so, you want to quay the cabinets, quay your refrigerator, and make sure that you're not taking in any chemicals and dyes and harsh, processed foods that are going to harm your body, harm your organs in the long run and the short run, to be honest. So we have a glossary here going through some of the vocabulary words that are used. And All right, so I'm just going to read a couple of things here. Actually, I start off with Matthew 25:23, and it says, "Well done, admirable one. You have been faithful over a few things, and I will make you the ruler over many things." And so I love that, because when we think about quaying, when we think about establishing order in our life, we have to consider what the Word of God says, which says when you're faithful to the few things, you can be blessed and a ruler over many. And so, if you want that house on the hill or house by the beach, right? Take care of your house in the suburbs. Sweep them corners. Pray over it. Keep order in your space and watch, the Creator open up for more for you. But we have to be faithful over a few before we are blessed with many. And so there's I think about 10 different scriptures in there about it, but there are so many that talk about these things. And so, yes, I am a Christ follower. This blog is not focused on that, but it is focused on the Cuay Way, which I do think is very much connected to living a godly way of taking care of the planet, taking care of our families and our neighbors and our hearts, and keeping a spiritual connection with the Most High. So we'll definitely be, highlighting some of those things, but I'll have people on the show from all walks of life sharing the way that they Cuay, the way that their families have established order, and also the way to get peace from their perspective and how that has added to them moving on in their purpose. So I just want to share that as well. So anyway, this has been very refreshing for me to just air this out, open the space, talk about Cuaying, why it's important to me, kind of where my family has come from, what's brought me to this place. And so next up, I really want to introduce you to Crown Therapy. So that will be our next episode. And I want to introduce you to Crown Therapy because that's going to bring us to the purpose component. So we talked about organizing. We talked about the Cuaying book. If you don't have this, it is on Amazon. You can go to cuay.org and order it, or you can go to Amazon to get a copy for your family. It's a really easy read. You actually can read it with any age children, honestly. I think it's important for you to start teaching children how to Cuay from the moment that they start to walk. Like, okay, you can Cuay that diaper to the trash, right? You can Cuay your toys back into the toy bin. And if we teach them that versus catering to them and doing everything for them, then they begin to learn that it's a way of life. And by the time they're 20, maybe we won't have to be telling them to pick their socks up off the floor and those kind of things. We might still have to tell them, but it's okay. But I do want to talk about Crown Therapy. And so we'll get into that the next time. Again, I am Sadia King. It has been so amazing for me to just open up with transparency, share kind of what brought me here, what brought me to this space, and, really be obedient to what has been called of me, because I know that I'm a journalist and I know that I'm an author, and I'm all about advocating for families. And so this is kind of a merger of that. I want to be an asset for families. I want to bring to this space tools for families to establish order in their lives, peace in their lives, and get them closer to their purpose. So if these are things that are important to you, your family, and your loved ones, please stay tuned. Subscribe to our new podcast, The Cuay Way, and let's get this word out there. Let's get this word in here or somewhere, right? And let's really Cuay the world. God bless you. See you next time.